Hey there, Heather Ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to another Stone Cold Hockey 1972-73 WHA season unloaded, if you will. This is the first season of the WHA in history. And you see 12 franchises, Cleveland having a team in the WHA, and then 5 years later, the NHL decided to make its way to Cleveland after this failure of the Golden Seals franchise. New England bring a team to the geographical area, even though Boston had the Bruins. Like the Whalers were successful because they were one of the four teams that merged with the NHL and put their team in Hartford. The Quebec Nordiques, another team like trying to give Quebec some Major League Hockey other than Montreal and the NHL. The Nordiques would also be part of the merger. The New York Raiders trying to raid in on New York's territory, but that didn't fare so well. The Philadelphia Blazers, which was shocking that they would be competing with the Philadelphia Flyers directly, but in essence, that actually worked out, I guess. The Ottawa Nationals train the WHA to Ontario. Toronto had the monopoly on hockey in Ontario, but they bring one to Ottawa. Houston, a big sport going to Texas, like hockey going to Texas. It actually worked out. They played all but the last season of the WHA. I don't think they were in the round last season. The Winnipeg Jets, great team, putting a team to the Canadian West. Of course, Vancouver having their NHL team, but Winnipeg having a WHA team, and they stayed the course, and they got to expand, head to the NHL. The Minnesota Fighting Saints, who were chasing the North Stars for popularity in Minnesota, were not doing so well. The Alberta Oilers, soon to be the Edmonton Oilers. Calgary didn't have a franchise either, but yeah, Edmonton. The Oilers would be the Edmonton Oilers and would get into the NHL. The LA Sharks trying to compete for out that LA money and bring West Coast America a WHA team, even though that um, they were competing with the Kings, and the Chicago Cougars were trying to challenge the Chicago Blackhawks for everything. The goal leader is Ron Ward with 24, with Gary Jarrett second at 22, with Danny Larson and Bobby Hall doing the same thing. Assist wise, Bobby Hall leads with 34 assists. Andre Lacroix second, 28. Three guys with 27. Points wise, Bobby Hall leads Andre Lacroix and Gualo Boisert in that mark. Elements I don't think we need to know about, but the goals against. Look at Jerry Shevers. He's only lost one game in 19 appearances. He's number one in goals against. Russ Gillow of LA, number two, and Mike Curran, number three. It's kind of weird how Jack McCartan is below 500, but yet his goals against is higher than people like Al Smith, Jim McLeod, Don McLeod, and Jack Norris, who are playing a lot of games and all that. Nevertheless, the standings, lots of games. Winnipeg's already played 34 games after a season, which is shocking. Well, how many games do they get? Well, they get 78 games. So yeah, it's weird how Winnipeg's already played 34 games, whereas people like Philly and Chicago have only played like 25, 26 games. Points percentage wise, Philly should be fourth instead of New York, and Minnesota should be second in the West, not Winnipeg. That's what happened. Anyway, the road not good for Quebec or New York or Ottawa. Well, Quebec and New York are decent at home. Wait. Highlights wise, yeah, we have 78 games. Houston, Ottawa, December 3rd, when Houston won in overtime 8-7 after Ottawa tied it at 7. Taylor scoring the goal. That's the number one game. Number two, Chicago, Ottawa, November 23rd, when Ottawa again tied the game and went to overtime but lost in overtime. And Winnipeg versus Alberta, Winnipeg in overtime over the Oilers, November 30th. Lots of things going on. We're going to keep an eyeball on Chicago, New York. Winnipeg, New England sees New England win over Winnipeg, Chicago, New York. We're going to be watching this game and seeing Gary Kurt, the backup, taking on Jim McLeod, the starter for the Cougars, if you will. Andre Gill and Paul Menard, the goalies for Chicago. Pete Donnelly and Ian Wilkie are the goalies for New York. Chicago has Bob Szynski at center, Rosie Paymont, the Vancouver star who actually ended up trying to be hypnotized by Ravine the Magnificent and couldn't help out. Reggie Fleming, the first NHLer with CTE, Sean Pempile, Bob Whitlock, Larry Mafety, Rick Morris, Dan Laboda, Bob Linnington, Ron Anderson, Bill Barber, Jim Benzalak, Dick Profiat, Rod Zane, Daryl Nibbs, Larry Cahan, one of the two guys who accidentally hurt Bill Masterton so much he died, Brian Glenwright, Ed Hatum, Jerry Truman, Pierre Field, and Dick McGlynn. The Raiders have Ron Ward, top goal scorer there, Bobby Sheehan, former Hab, Wayne Rivers, former Bruin, Gene Prakash there, Norm Ferguson, Ken Block, Brian Bradley, not the Brian Bradley we know from the Lightning at least, Mike Lawton, Brian Perry, Craig Rickma, Bill Spear, Hal Morris, Bob Jones, Kent Douglas, the former SEAL and Leaf, Wally Olds, Bob Winograd, Jamie Kennedy, not the comedian, Jerry Peters, Brian Morantz, Claude Chartres, Ted Scarf, future executive with the Kitchener Rangers, Bob Brown, John Gauthier, and Jarda Kropicka. 5 minutes into the first period, New York gets penalized. It's block for 2. Just for Chicago Skiers, Papa Parbligo rolling around the Rosie, the pocket full of goals. He got it. It's now 1-2-0. His 14th from Reg Fleming and Rick Morris. A few minutes later, action, nothing by Rosie. 4 minutes later, aggression. It's Rosie Paymont. How go figure. Ron Ferguson can't do anything now. Kim Willis. 4 minutes later, Chicago Benzalak stopped by Kurt. Chicago up 1-0. Early on, Chicago delivers a hit. Another minute happens. Aggression. 2 hits, no penalty. 2 minutes later. We're tied. Much later. Forcer? There's a fight between Paymont and Block. Rosie Paymont. Well, that's good news for New York because Rosie Paymont was a good scorer. At the end of it, nothing. And it's 1-1 after 20 minutes. 1 minute later. On the river fly. His 13 from one board, and Kent Douglas. See, Ward can pass the puck. Oh boy. Livingston. Forcer, aggression. Another fight. It's Paymont again with Block again. Both going now. Whitlock it's Whitlock the Morlock. His 7th from Mavadim John Papel. Makes it 2-2. Penalties are over. His 7th from Ron Ward. Not bad, Brian Crowley from the former Kitchener Ranger. A chance for Chicago Skiers. Put a Liddington on that one. His 8th from Szynski and Bob Barber. Not Barker, Barber. And that is it. 3-3. Unlike the NHL, they go to overtime. 10 minutes. 4 minutes into the overtime. Overtime heroics. Liddington put the lid on New York and wins the game. His 9th from Rick Morris. Chicago wins en prolongation. What a win. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No one had a 2-goal lead. Okay, who do I know? Houston, Minnesota, Ottawa, Winnipeg. Okay. Go Houston, Ottawa, Minnesota, Winnipeg. Nothing there. Alberta beats Houston. Minnesota beats LA. And Quebec beats Philly. Houston's not Houston's Alberta. Ottawa, Minnesota, Winnipeg. No. New England, Chicago tie. Houston shuts out Alberta. New York beats Quebec. And Philly beats Winnipeg. Minnesota, Ottawa, Houston, Ottawa, Winnipeg. Minnesota beat Chicago. New England beat LA. New York beat Ottawa. Ottawa, Alberta. Houston, Minnesota. Well, Houston, Minnesota we can play. All right, Houston, Minnesota. We will have. So we have to see if when Ottawa and Winnipeg play next with each other. And they'll play on. Wow. When do they play Winnipeg next? So we have to simulate all the way to January 28th. So we have to simulate through January to see Ottawa, Winnipeg. All right. Whatever you say. So that's what we'll do. So nevertheless, we're gonna do Houston. Oh, by the way, Alberta beats Ottawa in overtime. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Houston, Minnesota. Do they play later on or no? Oh shoot! That was not supposed to happen. I simulated the wrong one. Now, well, we'll have to go on New Year's Day then. Houston, Minnesota. Yeah, January the 1st. So we're gonna. So we'll just auto play the month. All right. Houston, Minnesota this time. All right. So Houston is at 23-13. Minnesota 17-18-3. Houston brings Don McLeod, the goalie, against Jack McCartan. Don McLeod's the backup. Officially, Wayne Rutledge, former Kings goalie. The number one guy, Bill Hughes, number 3. Don McLeod would become Houston's goalie of the land. The Fighting Saints, Mike Curran would be the starting goalie. Carl Wenzel, the third guy. But Jack McCartan, the backup. Jack McCartan is an important name in um, international hockey lore, as he was the gold medal winning goalie of the Olympics. Now you'd be thinking, hang on, that's Jim Craig. Well, unfortunately, you're wrong. Jack McCartan was the gold medal winning goalie in 1960. The U.S. won the 1960 Olympics. People probably thought it was the Soviets, probably it was Canada or Czechia or Sweden. Nope, it was the United States. It's what's called the forgotten miracle because the Americans in 1960 were not really that great. NHL wise, only a handful played in the NHL, including Tommy Williams. But the U.S. team, they played in Squaw Valley, California. It was like, why would the Winter Olympics be in California? Aren't they hot? Well, Squaw Valley is a ski resort, and basically got the Olympics somehow in some way. So anyway, the Americans played well. They took out Canada 2-1 in a spirited affair, and then they took on the Czechoslovakia. They were in deep trouble. They were losing, and then the Russian or the Soviet captain, I guess we call it, Nikolai Golubov or someone, mind putting his hand over his face, like to get oxygen. So the Americans got an oxygen tank, and it worked as they beat Czechia and won the gold medal. Anyway, Houston has got Gorla Bolzon, the former King, playing Ted Taylor. I think he became a college coach. Murray Hall, Larry Lund, Paul Popule, Don Grierson, Duke Harris, sounds like a baseball name, Frank Hughes, Brian McDonald, Ed Hawkstra, Larry Hale, Cleve Morrison, Doug McCollum, John Scala, Jack Stanfield, Brian Smith, Ray LaRose, Gord Kensinger, and Bill Prentice. Minnesota has Wayne Connolly, the former North Star, playing Ted Hampson, former SEAL, Bill Klatt, Mike McMahon, former North Star, Keith Christensen, George Morrison, Bobby McMillan, I think former Leaf future Atlanta Flame, Terry Ball, Mike Antelovich, John Arbor, good player, Fred Speck, Jim Johnson, Len Lillingham, Mel Person, Terry Ryan, Dick Paradise, Frank Sanders, not the wide receiver of the Cardinals, George Connick, Craig Folkman, Mike, and Blaine Reinman. So here we go. And no, the Howell brothers did not come in and all that early in the game. Grove was a hit. Scala for 2. Minnesota can't do anything. Lilyholm can't do anything about it. Gresham. Houston with the maximum aggression. Grierson for 2. Smith from Hampton and Pearson makes it 1-0 mini. Then 2 minutes later, Scala. 2 minutes later, and a chance for Houston Skiers. Papayi, Papayin, Papayin, Papaboom. Papa has 11 from Mortson and Murray Hall. Makes it 1-1. Gershon. It's another penalty. It's Hale. Papa Papa goes. Bill Flat. 26 from Christian and Speck. Not Spock, Speck. 4 minutes later. Action? No, Murray Hall. Battle? There's a penalty in Minnesota snaps in the first Fighting Saints penalty of the period. But they killed the zone on McCallum and Hawkstra. 6 minutes later. A chance for Connolly? No. 3 minutes later. Scala. No Johnson, no Antonovich. 3 minutes later. Chance for Arbor. Oh, a save. 3 minutes later. And it's going to be penalty on Minnesota's Paradise. What will be going on? Who's going to catch the time? It is Papa Power play goal. Murray Hall. Kids in the Hall. His 16 from Brian McDonald. Makes it 2-2 after 2. Perfect circle. 3 minutes later. Battle in the first one. 4 minutes later. It's a penalty on Houston for retaliatory action. Scala. No shot by Paradise. And no shot by Morrison. Chance for Speck for Minnesota. No. Early on. Minnesota, and it's Arbor. John Arbor. Houston Skiers. Papa Power play goal. Don Grierson has 16 from LeBoisson and Larry Hale. 3-2. 2 minutes later. He's in the zone. Auto zone. Houston. Just gotta hang on. And they do. Houston survives 3-2. Minnesota can't feel good about themselves. Houston wins 3-2. Goals by Popiel, Hall, and Grierson with Lilyholm and Klatt scoring for Minnesota. Your Winnipeg's going to play Ottawa on the 28th. The 28th. Alberta beats Winnipeg, and then New York beats 28th. So yeah, we have to go quickly because Ottawa and Winnipeg are left. They don't play each other for a while. Okay. All right. So Winnipeg at 500. Ottawa not doing so hot. Shields Graton, Gratuity Looney and net for Ottawa. Les Binkley, the former Pittsburgh icon, is there. Frank Blum. Joe Daly, who would be Winnipeg's goalie from Pillar of the Post. He's number 1. Well, Ernie Wakely of the Blues, number 1, and Gordon Wilson. Frank Blum. Anyway, Bobby Hall, the Golden Jet. The reason why the WHA had credibility because of that $1 million check. Norm Baudouin also playing. Christian Bordelot, good center field. Larry Horning, Danny Johnson, Ad McDonald for Winnipeg. Milt Black, Wally Boyer, the former SEAL. Wally Boyer. Doug Rousseau, Cal Swenson, Jean-Guy Graton, Joe Sanusi, who would be later moved from the Bruins to the Rangers in that big Brad Park deal. Bill Sutherland, Garfield Sudo, Steve Cuttle, Bill Ash, Freeman Asmussen, Brian Cato, Bob Wojtowicz, and John Schmidt. Ottawa has Wayne Carleton in the net, former Blue and Bruin. Gavin Kirk, known for his good luck charm, kernel of corn, thing of corn cob. That helped Ottawa sneak into the playoffs. Bob Charlebois, not the singer, that's Robert Charlebois. Guy Trottier from Relief. Battleship Leduc. Steve King, not the offer. Tom Martin. Brian Gibbons. Dick Sentis, Rick Cunningham. Jack Gibson, Ron Climby, Brian Conacher from Relief. Ken Stefanson, Tom Simpson, Mike Boland, Mike Amadeo. Steve Ward, Chris Miloff, Ron Riley, John Donnelly, and Marv Haney. Remember, non goalies. 6 minutes. Double hit. 5 minutes later. Aggression. And it'll be Donnelly. Want to make a chance? Well, Baudouin had a chance, but Cunningham speared him. Winnipeg 5-on-3 skiers. Power go. Sister Christian Bordelot, his 28th. Bobby Hall with 49th assists. Who says he can't pass the puck? Baudouin had it, but then he takes a dumb 2-minute penalty. Gavin Captain Kirk is 14 from Battleship Duke. Throw a kernel of corn towards him. 3 minutes later, action, no shot. They're humming. 4 minutes left. Defense, action by Winnipeg, and it will be Ottawa who will take the penalty. Gibson. Now up to kill the zone. Bobby Hall can't do anything. Now look at Swenson. Kirk and Stevenson. That's it. Bring another. Captain Kirk is 50. Carlton is 3-1. Another chance. Winnipeg Skiers. Baudouin has 32nd from Cuttlefish and Bobby Hall with 50 assists. Final moments. Starts the game. Sister Christian Bordelot, his 29th, second of the night from Sanusi and Baudouin. And the Winnipeg Jets have forced it 3-3. Early on, 4 minutes. From Charles Warren. 5 minutes later, Winnipeg a chance. Baudouin, Baudouin, no. 5 minutes later. Jet Skiers. The Golden Jet. You knew he was going to score eventually. His 29th from Bordelot. 2 minutes. Penalty on Winnipeg. Cuttlefish. Hot to shot. Second from Cunningham. Hot to Tortier. Empty net. Demonster. Patrick. Good, well pass. Carlton will be good. Fighting 5 for 500. Scores again, 7-4 from Cunningham and Boland. Winnipeg can't believe for what. They just couldn't do anything today. Winnipeg and Ottawa. Ottawa win 7-4. Trottier 2 goals, Gavin Kirk 3. So yeah, lots of fun. Lots of fun. Ottawa beats Winnipeg 7-4. So summary: there's a fight. Ottawa's kind of clawing in. Chicago's trying, but you know, there's Cleveland and Houston are the class of the NHL, of the WHA, I should say. So we know what we have to deal with and what we have to not deal with. Hey, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do. I can find everything. Yep.